got some people stuck by a train. I know. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Tonight, we do have a special honor. We have Cub Scout Pack 341. You want to turn yours off for a second? Here tonight, and they're going to present the colors, and then we're going to do the lead us in the pledge, and then I want to hear from one spokesman about what you did in the last hour. Okay? So I'll call the meeting. Everybody's mouth just went. I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have one member of the Cub Scouts that would like to come up to the podium? This is the public comment portion that we were talking about. They're all out of here. Go up to the microphone. You can state your name and what town you live in.
My name is Jack Smith, and I live in Montgomery.
Perfect.
And what we did here was we had a tour, and we did like a meeting about power plant,
Solid.
and we argued about it.
Yes.
In
very
my opinion, it's a bad idea.
perfect. And you have officially entered that into the record so that 100 years from now, it'll show up that tonight we talked about a nuclear power plant in Montgomery.
Oh, okay.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I really do appreciate you coming. That was probably one of the best like mock board meetings that I've ever seen. So it was pretty awesome. So thank you for coming. If you guys want to hang out for 1 second, we're going to do a check presentation that I want you guys to see, and then you guys can get out. You don't have to stay here all night, okay?
Okay.
Because I know you probably have school tomorrow.
We
'Cause
do.
my son doesn't have to go to school tomorrow, apparently.
Lucky.
So. Yeah, we should do roll call.
Trustee Guyer.
Here.
Trustee Spurling. Here. Trustee Bauman.
Here.
Trustee Youngerman.
Here.
Trustee Marisak.
Here.
Trustee Brzeska.
Okay, we're all here. All right, moving into public participation, we'll do the second item B. Is there anybody here for public comment who wishes to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the first one, is a check presentation to the Hesed House. Any intro or me? Just me? All right, perfect. So I'd like the Hesed House representative to come down. So thanks for coming this evening, appreciate it. Tonight kind of, I would say is more of the start of an ongoing relationship with the Village of Montgomery, and from what I know, a continuation of the relationship that the F3 folks have had with the Hesed House over the years. This past Montgomery Fest, we encouraged the gentleman from F3 to come volunteer, help support the fest. In exchange for that, they said, you know what, can you make, we don't need a donation to the foundation for F3, will you please make a donation to the Hesed House? It's a common entity that we both support. So I've invited some of the F3 folks who I hang out with in the morning when it's dark at 5:15 to come tonight to introduce you all to a little bit about what they do. But if you have a second, and you can introduce yourself and a little bit about what Hesed House accomplishes here locally.
My name is Joe Jackson. I'm the executive director at Hesed House. Hesed House, super briefly, second largest homeless shelter in the state of Illinois. We've been around for 41 years, but we consider ourselves to be so much more than just a shelter. On our campus, we have both shelters, but then also a comprehensive resource center that inside has anything from job training to a fully staffed medical center to substance use counseling, mental and behavioral health counseling, family counseling, parenting classes. You name something that a person or family might need to get back up on their feet again, it is under that roof that is on our campus. So funds like you all raised for us make those things possible. We serve people from, we've had babies as young as 3 days old to people as old as in their 90s. And every single person, every single family that comes to Hesed House has unique needs. And the funds that you all raise for us help us meet those, whether it's diapers, whether it's formula, whether it's glasses, whether it's medication, whether it's boots for a new job, suit for a job interview. You make that possible. And Hesed House would not exist without people like you all raising funds and without the Village of Montgomery and the partnership that we've had for a very, very long time. So thank you all so much for making Hesed House possible.
Awesome. And then I would like to invite Torian Richardson to come and speak. Tell us a little bit about F3, your goals, your hopes, your dreams.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. My name is Torian Richardson. I'm a member of F3 Nation. I am also a member of our board of directors for F3 Nation globally. And so as an organization, we exist to plant, grow, and serve small men's workouts groups for the acceleration of male community leadership. And within that, there's a lot impacted, but the thing that we really like to hone in on for tonight's conversation is community and the relationship that we've had with the Hesed House and continue to want to move forward with is really about not only being a part of the community, but helping to build and uplift the community. And we hope that this evening is a further acceleration and openness of further cooperation and ways in which we work together.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. No, they can come up down here.
President Brawley, as long as everyone's up there, I think the F3 guys should have to say their F3 names while they're up there.
I was taking the picture.
All right, Cub Scouts, you're dismissed. You can stay if you want, but you don't have to. I know you got school in the morning, okay? Awesome, thank you.
I think you could declare an excused absence for them.
Right. They went this far.
Tell them that's something a mayor can do.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
Patrick, we appreciate you staying.
Good to see you.
You keep looking around, but you are the sole survivor.
He's looking around and. It's awesome. Oh, yeah. Did you, oh, wait, I gotta get this.
You can try to deposit that into an ATM machine, but I don't know if it'll.
Well, Doug already threatened tackling them if they walked out.
You can't leave with the big check.
They can have the big check. They can have the big check.
Oh, see,
It's not dry erase, I can't do anything else with it.
Hopefully, you gave him the real check, right?
Christina gave it to them.
Perfect. Mission accomplished. Okay. It's just us. All right, so I'll read the consent items and then entertain a motion. Minutes of the September 23rd Village Board meeting, accounts payable and summary report through October 14th, the accounts receivable report for September of '24, the community development monthly report for September of '24, water production report of September of '24.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Items for separate action. The first one tonight is Resolution 2024-041 to renew the animal control contract. Chief Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. What you have before you is a resolution requesting authorization to renew the agreement with Kane County Animal Control. That's the organization that services all the stray pets within our village. We've had that agreement now for 16 years. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So moved.
Moved in second. Go ahead and call the roll.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
All right, and that carries. Item B tonight, Resolution 2024-047, approving a settlement agreement for the early termination of the MetroNet franchise agreement. Staff has again asked that we table this to a future meeting. Any objection?
No.
All right. Item C is Resolution 2024-048, authorizing the execution of a water purchase and sale contract. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm actually going to discuss items C, D,
Oh, yeah.
E, and F for you, and then you can vote on them separately. All four documents tonight pertain to our membership in DuPage Water as part of our transition to Lake Michigan Water. Oswego and Yorkville have already approved these agreements, and DWC will be addressing them at their board meeting on Thursday, but they want all the communities to adopt them first. C is actually enacting our membership into DuPage Water Commission. It says that they will begin delivering water to us no later than 2032. At our choosing, we can join sooner if we like, once we have our water loss below 10%, so that's totally up to us. As part of this, the three communities joining, they will be creating a seventh district. There are currently 6 districts now. They will create a 7th district for the communities not in DuPage. There will be 2 representatives for the district. One will be a resident of this area appointed by the DuPage County Board Chair, and the other will be voted on by the agreement by the 3 mayors. So,
Is it the DuPage County,
DuPage County Board Chair.
not the chair of the
Well, they're,
Water Commission, because it's different?
yeah, no, it says the Board Chair.
Got it.
Will the third, or will the second person that's appointed by the village boards, the
3 mayors?
the three mayors or whatever it is, will that be a rotating?
Yes,
So Montgomery, Yorkville, Oswego, okay.
yes.
Okay.
So, the second item, item D, has to do with the construction of facilities and escrow for the construction. Per that, as you can see, we pay our 24.42% is our share of the project, as we worked out with the other 2 communities. Item E, the capital recovery charge, is our buy-in cost, and that is at $9.9 million. We're getting that, we'll pay that in installments over 30 years, interest-free, per the agreement with DuPage Water Commission. And then item F has to do, they're providing the ability for each community to get a line of credit from DuPage Water of $7 million if we want to help us with the project. It's not an attractive interest rate. It would be our least attractive. So we do not plan on taking advantage of it unless for some reason we needed a short-term bridge loan if we had a cash flow emergency. But it's there just as an option for us. So, and with that, I'd be happy to answer questions, or somebody will be happy to answer questions, depending on what they are.
I actually have, it's something you and I have talked about before. If you would just clarify with the percentages, that is based on population
We're planning for 2050.
2050 and based on what is our projected maximum daily use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Sorry. Any other questions from the board?
I move to approve item C, resolution 2024-048.
Second.
Go ahead.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes?
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Carry 6-0.
Motion, item D, 20-24-049.
Nailed it.
Second.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Item E.
Second.
That's all right. So that's E, Resolution 2024-050. Your mic's off, and you made a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Second by Brazil.
Trustee Youngerman? Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
That carries 6-0. This is the culmination, guys, of like 10 years of planning.
Right.
We're gonna nail the voting on this last one, okay?
Motion to approve item F, resolution 2024-051.
Second.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
That carries 6-0. I sincerely appreciate all of your guys' help and support on this project. It's probably the biggest, most important project that any of us will ever work on in Montgomery, and it's very complicated. So to the staff, thank you. This is just the beginning, but thank you. All right, let's move on. Item G is,
All that work they've
It's
done,
the
they
middle.
can't even handle a motion in a second.
yeah, right. Resolution G is 2024-052, approving plat of dedication for Douglas Avenue and Sherman Avenue. Director Wolf.
Thank you, President Browley. So as part of the village's sidewalk gap program, we identified an area, St. Olaf's Church, on the corner of Douglas and Sherman, where the church actually owned right-of-way or owned property to the center line of the road. And so in order for us to clean up prescriptive right-of-way, as well as be able to install sidewalk in this area, we have gained a plat of dedication for the right-of-way. It's being proposed to the board tonight. Construction of the sidewalk will be taking place in this year's IRP. If there's any questions from the board, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Motion approved.
Second.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska?
Yes.
Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
That carries 6-0. All right, continued. Item H is ordinance 2095, an ordinance declaring personal property owned by the village as surplus and authorizing its disposal. Waiver of first passage on second reading. Director Zolfo. Sorry, Administrator Zolfo.
It's me,
Sorry.
doubled up. Thank you,
did.
President Browley.
And I demoted him too in the process.
So as the village has in the past, we utilize our vehicle and equipment replacement fund to replace vehicles and equipment in different departments throughout the village. Identified in this year's VERF was 5 squad cars for the police department that are being replaced. So these are the 5 vehicles that are being decommissioned with the replacement of the 5 new ones. So those vehicles have been procured and are being upfitted as we speak, and so these vehicles will become ready for sale here. The village has utilized an online auction service where we've had great luck over the years, and that's how we plan on marketing these 5 vehicles in this instance. If there's any questions from the board, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
I have a question that I don't know if it's yours or not. The funds from this, do they go back into the VERF?
They do. They do, to offset any future purchases.
Thank you.
I have a question. We're about to auction off 5 Ford Explorers. Do any of the other departments need a vehicle?
So we go through that process typically as a request. So for example, this year we held one of the retired squads for a little bit longer for the intern for community development. That intern is now gone. We also evaluate our own needs, public works or other departments before those are sold off. But typically, again, we're hitting vehicles that are at the end of their life cycle, so it's more advantageous for us for a long-term use to budget for a new vehicle that's more reliable and doesn't have as much impact on our maintenance costs. But it is something that we do look at for short-term vehicles.
And just to clarify, when we talk about the life cycle, because they're only 2020s, the public might think that, but these are vehicles that idle a lot and have a lot of miles.
Correct. So there's different lifespans for different calibers of equipment or vehicles. So for example, in this instance, these are patrol vehicles, which are set at a 5-year life cycle. So as you pointed out, Trustee Marisak, they are higher mileage as well as more significant higher idling time, as those vehicles are running quite a bit more than, say, investigations or administrative vehicles at Village Hall or so on and so forth. So again, all of the life cycles are set in the VERF dependent on their general use.
Thank you.
Mark, I have a question for you, too. You didn't think you were going to get this many questions, right?
That's okay.
Right. So, I mean, to me, it's fairly obvious. So anything that's identifying it as a Montgomery Police Department vehicle has been removed?
Correct.
Is
So
that's a safe assumption, correct?
correct.
What about the other things, the cage thing for the back seat? Like, is it all that taken out, or is it something that could be sold where maybe another police department buys it and it's somewhat equipped for that?
So you're correct. So all of the lights are removed, as well as any and all decals that represent the Village of Montgomery or any badge identifier on the vehicle. So those lights are decommissioned, but we do typically leave the cages and/or the back seat, which are like a molded plastic seat, not your typical factory
Not
seat.
the comfortable, normal
Yeah,
back seat.
so typically, in the past, we had tried to hold on to those factory seats, but we found again that with the value that we're getting in the auction of these vehicles and what it's costing us to store the seats for that long, and then pay our fleet staff to reinstall them, we found that it's just not worth it. So they are sold as is, once that process takes place. But again, every vehicle is different. Excuse me. So some instances, like an investigations vehicle, they're not equipped with a cage or a back seat. So again, they're all sold as is in that regard, but all the markings and all the lights are decommissioned.
In these auctions, are they sold to other municipalities, or can the public buy them?
Typically, it's, in my experience in selling vehicles for the last 5 years, it's mostly the private sector that buys them. A lot of people buy them for security for places like Carl Buddig or other, entities that have their own on-site security. But some are sold that you see driving around town, or like the last vehicle we sold to a gentleman in near Atlanta, Georgia. Drove up, picked up the car, and was taking it back for his own personal use. So wide variety of uses for all village vehicles and equipment that are sold.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
That's ordinance 2095.
Trustee Brazaska? Trustee Guyer?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Bauman,
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Carries 6-0. Thank you. H tonight is approval for award of a contract to Lane Christensen Company in the amount of $338,475 for well number 8 rehab project. This is a waiver of bid. Engineer Ott?
Thank you, President Browley. received proposals from two companies, Waterwell Solutions and Lane Christensen Company. Project came in under budget, and we are recommending approval award be made to the low bidder, Lane Christensen. Happy to answer any questions.
Why is it a waiver of bid?
We did not, advertise and open sealed bids. We just decided to do proposals similarly to like we did last year with Well 3, where we got two competitive proposals from the same people, but it was not competitively bid, basically.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Is proposal held to the same standards as a bid would be? Is the proposal held to the same standards as a sealed bid would be, or does this give the contractor a little bit more leniency on material cost, time frame, et cetera?
No, they still would, we still gave them all of our same specs that we would do as if it was publicly bid. We just wanted to solicit these specific two people and keep other well rehab people that we had not worked with before out of possibly bidding on the project. So they're still held to the same standards that we normally would, and same language.
It's just not 100% typical of what we've seen. But would you explain the agreement that we do have with Lane Christensen that we've used in the past?
Yeah,
I don't know if we
so-
still have that, but.
Yeah, so we do have an agreement with Lane Christensen, a task order agreement to do well rehab work. Typically in the past, that's what the village had utilized to do their well rehab. However, last year, due to costs that we thought were out of line of what we had typically seen for a rehab, we chose to get a proposal from a different company. In that case, it was Waterwell Solutions. In talking to staff in the water department, we chose to do something similar where we got proposals from both companies this year. Instead of just using the task order from Lane, we felt like that's getting the village a better price. And I think it worked out well on Well 3 because the other contractor's proposal was significantly lower than Lane's. In this case, Lane's was lower.
Thanks.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Marisak, second by Bauman. Go ahead.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
And that carries 6-0. Last item for separate action is ordinance 2096, authorizing the acquisition of real property at 220 Clinton Street. Waiver of first passage on second reading. Attorney Julia.
Yes, thank you. This is a property that the village has had the right of first refusal on, dating back to the construction of Village Hall. We were able to negotiate a contract for $220,000, which is $30,000 less than what the listing price was on the property. So at this time, we're requesting that the board approve the contract so we can move forward with the closing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Megan.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Brazaska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. We have nothing for discussion. Anything new or unfinished? I'm sure we got some cool stuff.
I do. October 23rd, we have, Beautification Committee has a Halloween decoration contest judging. So if anybody's available to do that, please let me know. And if you have any friends that like looking at Halloween decorations that would like to judge, have them contact me, please.
Deal.
Just wanted to thank the Montgomery Police Department and their staff, officers, everyone that volunteered for Saturday's event was fantastic. The amount of volunteers that you guys have incorporated into the fold is unbelievable. So thank you to all the officers and everybody involved that put that together. All the community sponsors that helped put it together and were there as well.
Perfect. And Ben, would you, I guess, report to the group what you were doing during that event? You guys were taking donations?
Yes, so for Rotary Club, we were taking food donations, and if you brought a food donation, you got an extra raffle ticket. So we collected a whole truck full of food. Yeah, my pickup truck is loaded today.
It's awesome. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, just wanted to highlight something good when we see it, so. All right, excellent. Anything else?
Yes, yes. I have a couple
I was at a
items.
board meeting last week where they go down the aisle and they want to hear everything that everybody did over the last 2 weeks. I don't ever want to get there.
Oh, no, no.
It was fun.
So I know that in our notes, we did receive some feedback regarding Concord. I didn't want to step on your toes. That was something, you brought that in, right? About Concord Road. I emailed Administrator Zoffel. I almost demoted you again. Administrator Zoffel and Director Wolf. I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't include you on that email, but I had asked about, is there something we can do in the meantime in terms of putting the wording on the street to say slow down as we're approaching that park? Or can we drop the speed limit in that area similar to what you see in a school zone? Are those options for us at this point?
So the option that we identified or suggestion that we referenced in the notes was for us to add pedestrian crosswalk signs in that area, not only just at Thunder Gulch, but also at Monarchos, thank you. So for those two areas where the bulk of pedestrians are going to be crossing to possibly utilize the park and/or other activities that they're crossing Concord for. Typically, so Concord is a no-load collector, so typically reducing the speed is not something that we would recommend in this case, because again, this is a no-load collector that's designed to move traffic at a higher rate of speed. So that's therefore why that's designed. So again, our process or recommendation is to put in those crossing signs as well as striping those crosswalks, which are not striped now, which will draw more attention to them for pedestrian crossings. Our plan too is to constantly or continue to evaluate that intersection. So they've only completed phase 1 of the park. Phase 2 will come with other amenities such as a splash pad. And then there's also a restroom facility and other things that'll attract likely smaller age groups of kids. So again, we know that this will be evolving and continue to change. So we want to be able to continue to monitor that progress. So just because there's not a warrant currently for a stop sign or additional measures, that's not to say that there won't be things in the future that will cause that to change. And so again, we want to make sure we keep that in the forefront and make sure we're staying on top of that. But for now, the recommendations based upon the study are what we put in the notes for the additional striping and signage to go in that area.
Okay, so we'll just continue to watch that situation and see.
Correct. And on top of that, I know that in talking to Chief Smith, there'll be some additional enforcement in that area as well, based upon the information that we received during the traffic study. So that should also help with some of the speeding issues there as well.
Okay. So I have another, did you have something to say on that?
On that topic,
On that
yeah,
topic?
so,
Please, go ahead.
I think something you said causes me concern, that it's an intentional that road is intended to go at a faster rate of speed. Understood, but with walking paths, residents, and children, that speed is not appropriate through that neighborhood. So, yes, there's an intended speed for that, but obviously, I think in this neighborhood, it's too fast. So I understand the intended use, but if it's not working within the neighborhood, then I think we still need to have that conversation about reducing it, or even going a little bit further than what a standard engineering report says we should do.
And sorry not to derail this, the speed of this stretch of road is no different from any of the speeds in the neighborhoods, right? It's the same?
30?
No, I believe it is. I believe it's 35 miles an hour there. And,
But the intended
the
use is
rema-
one thing, but when you're driving it, walking it, and
Yeah.
living it is completely different. So we can say what it's supposed to be, but in reality, it's not.
Yeah, so the speed limit is higher than the residential streets on Concord.
And this was set up to be like a minor collector,
Correct.
so that it's 5 miles an hour design speed faster. However, it is intended to carry more traffic, so there will be more cars that utilize that. That's the hope in the plan. But I'm not.
I understand the volume intent,
Isn't that 10 miles?
Let me turn mine off, go ahead.
Is that 10 miles faster? Isn't it normal neighborhood 25?
No, we're 30.
We're higher as a standard.
Yeah. There's a mixture throughout the village of neighborhoods that are 25 and 30. But the standard speed limit that's in the village is 30, but you do have a good amount of neighborhoods in that area that are 25 miles an hour.
I've asked for years that for the streets that are 30 to be put
Yeah.
down to 25.
Yeah, we've talked about it several times, anyway.
Because if the speed limit's 25, you're lucky if they're going 32, 33.
35.
If it's 35, they're going 44. And I didn't know Concord is 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
35? 30.
I thought it was 30.
It could be, I don't know off the top of my head. It's either 30 or 35. I guess it's higher than the streets that are surrounding it.
I mean, regardless of the
I don't
posted
want to give
speed
you bad
limit,
information.
the actual use, and I understand there was collected one at that intersection, one accident report that was provided, and the engineering report that was done. But again, it comes to the fact of the actual speed, the actual traffic, the actual people riding bumpers down that street and going around you as you're waiting to make a left turn. I mean, there's just too much traffic for a street. We may not call it a residential street, but it runs in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And there's too many cars, and again, it's the load of the neighborhood and the houses, I get that, so I can't say there's too many cars, but there's too much disregard for safety on that street. And do we need to wait for 4 accidents at a certain intersection before we do something? Do we need to wait for a dog to get hit? Do we need to wait for a child to get hit before we act and do something? Which, at that point, no, it's too late because we've had this conversation today. So, yes, the report says we should just put markings, but if the reality of it that everyone feels safer with a stop sign, why can't we not put a stop sign?
So I struggle with that because I've been in nearby communities that'll just pop up a stop sign after, there's one that I'm thinking of nearby, they popped up a stop sign after like 70 years in a neighborhood. Somebody's gonna feel safer, and probably wrongfully so, right? I've admitted that I've passed that thing twice. Because I've been going down that street my whole life. So there's that. There's the perception of safety versus actually being safer. The initial study is sort of a little bit premature based on the fact that the park isn't fully operational, isn't really open yet. Last I'd heard, and I think the barricades, I hope they're moved now, but it's not for use yet. The road was designed as a minor collector to have a higher volume and slightly higher speed, which I would assume is consistent with all of our other minor collectors, major collectors, and road. We can certainly look into that holistically as a thing. We can look at speeds throughout the whole village. We can certainly do any of that stuff. And I think staff would just look for direction from the board on it. On this, though, let's do the interim improvement immediately, as soon as we can, so that we can call attention to drivers, just like I was saying, who have been driving down that road for 10 years in that neighborhood and have had nobody crossing it. And now suddenly you have walkers and bikers and other cars that are trying to go from north to south to get to the park now. Let's call a lot more attention to that with some selective enforcement. Even if we have a sign out there that's flashing for some time, some flags, whatever we need to do to call attention to it. And then in the spring, when that park is ready to roll, let's look at it again. Because one thing that I'll stand on is that we have to look at actual data and not so much anecdotal evidence, because that's what we do here. And other towns may disagree with that, other people might, but that's how things are supposed to operate, especially with traffic control devices. So I don't love the idea of just popping up stop signs because somebody, might feel safer doing it. The real thing is calling attention to the fact that you do have conflicts. You have cars, you have pedestrians at certain intersections. So this is step 1. Step 2 will be in the spring.
Okay, so then we'll just make sure we revisit that particular issue next spring.
Correct. And then one example I guess I'd like to throw out there is the intersection at Concord and Gordon. we recently made that a four-way stop within the last 4 or 5 years. And again, that was due to the acceleration or the, I guess, the second kick of development that happened in the Huntington Chase and Belle Marais area that warranted that. So again, that was a two-way stop. As traffic increased, more residential popped up. That changed, and we made that adjustment moving forward. So much like any street that gets brought in front of us for any type of traffic control or safety concerns, we're always going to continue to evaluate that because environment is always changing and development is changing and the need in the area, so.
Because and this is not like, hey, we're going to try this now and we're really not going to come back or it's not going to qualify. One of the key factors is pedestrian conflict with the through traffic, correct? So as that park gets up and going, there will be more pedestrian conflict with the cars, and so it could qualify in the future. And we'd have to look at it in the spring.
Another thing we're intentionally going to target more of the summer months because we feel that's when the park is going to be heavily utilized. Again, with the implementation of the splash pad, we anticipate younger age groups of children using that. So again, that's going to be the higher volume time. So that's going to be our intended time period to do our evaluation once the park is fully open and phase 2 is complete.
I mean, it wasn't.
I think
very-
as a village, we've kind of dragged our feet, or the village has dragged their feet. It was just been in the last couple of years that 2 improvements have been made on Concord. One at Lakewood Creek in Concord with that 3-way stop, which is a big improvement, it was drastically needed. And then a little bit further down closer to Mayfield where there was the pedestrian crosswalk added. And that's the other item, that was to aid the walking path where that cross occurs at Lakewood Creek, another big improvement. And I think the road concerns have to go hand in hand with the walkability that we want. We have the walking paths, and we've talked about that and expanding the walking paths. Well, it's also ensuring that safety, that the walking path runs all alongside Concord, but it's also crossing for both sides of the neighborhood to happen. You need a safe place to cross because, as Trustee Youngerman said, if it's posted at 30, traffic is going 40. If it's posted at 35, traffic is going at 45. And as pedestrians waiting to cross the road, it's, you don't want to play a game of Frogger and Chance going across that street. So I think that's, we talk about the element of feeling safe versus the necessity of being safe. But yeah, a safe neighborhood, you want to feel safe in that neighborhood.
And to clarify that, I want them to actually be safe while crossing, so I want it to be warranted. But I think we're talking the same language. We want people to walk to the park. I think when the Fox Valley Park District plans parks, if your home is within a 10-minute walk or something like that, that's how they space out their parks. So if you can walk there in 10 minutes, we want you to walk there. We want you to do it safely. We want you to bring your kid and your dog and cross the street. And if that means that a stop sign is needed, then we will put one up just like we did in those other instances. And we'll reevaluate that in the spring.
Okay.
So if I could just add, I'm looking at Google Maps street level here. When you come off of Dixon on a Concord, there's a 30-mile-an-hour sign there for Concord. Gordon is 35. But when you come off of Gordon on a Concord going east or west, there's not a stop sign that tells you it's 30 miles an hour. So people may be coming off Gordon thinking, well, I'm still on a pretty wide street, it's still 35. So maybe we need to take a look and make sure that we have adequate speed limit signs on Concord to make sure that people know that when they come off of Gordon, it's 35, that you're coming onto a road that's 30. But yeah, I appreciate you guys doing the traffic study. I will be interested to see what the future study will show. I understand that you physically sat out and counted traffic, but I don't think that is as consistent or accurate as if we put our electronic traffic counters out, because you're only catching a glimpse. And I live in that neighborhood, and I can tell you, whenever I'm coming and going, the other day at 4 o'clock we left, and I sat at Menarcho's in Concord and watched 4 cars go by before I could turn out. I was coming home one day around 3 o'clock, and in the intersection of Gordon and Concord, including me, there was 10 vehicles And they were either going west on Concord or east on Concord. Because anybody that's coming from the west or going to the west, everybody tries to stay off of Route 30. Yeah, I mean, I don't even go on Route 30 anymore. I go Concord to Galena to Orchard. So everybody is using that now as an alternate route to get away from Route 30. So almost everybody in that area is utilizing Concord to go west, or if they're coming west, to go east. And even if you use your navigation app, for instance, when I'm coming home, if I'm going east on 30, it tells me to turn on Dixon and go to Concord. That's the way the navigation app is pushing everybody. So I would think that our next move should be to put the electronic traffic counters out there so we can get a true, just like we did on Mayfield, we can get a true, accurate depiction of how much traffic we're actually getting on that road. I think it would be surprised, because I think we did that for Gordon and Concord, didn't we? And we warranted stop signs at Gordon and Concord. So I don't know how we can warrant a stop sign at Gordon and Concord in that same area, but not warrant a stop sign a little further to the west.
Trustee Guyer, we did count traffic on Concord with electronic counters for 7 days. So the issue with not the warrant of the stop sign there is that there's not enough traffic on the side street. You can have as much traffic on the through street, but if you don't generate enough traffic on the side street, you're not going to warrant a stop sign. And that's the problem at that intersection, is that there is not enough traffic on Monarcos and Venetian or Thunder Gulch to warrant a stop sign. There's 1,500 cars a day is what use Concord, and even that isn't hardly enough to warrant a stop sign based on the analysis that's in the study.
But the issue there is to put stop signs at those intersections so people can safely cross Concord. So what does it matter how much traffic is on a side street?
You're conflating two things. If it's vehicle, that's one thing. If it's vehicle pedestrian, that's a different box to check on the whole thing. He's saying that the main street barely has enough to warrant a stop sign. So the side streets don't have enough to warrant making 1,500 cars a day stop just so you can get out, so you don't have to wait for 4 cars. The bigger issue, I thought, was the ability of people to cross the
Correct.
intersection on foot. If that's the case, I imagine that's not a traffic counter, that is visual counting of pedestrians who are trying to safely navigate the
Right,
intersection.
Correct.
But I thought the whole purpose of this was to allow safe passage for pedestrians across Concord to the park. Not to allow people on the side street to pull out.
Right, you just made a comment about that, that's why I said that.
Right.
That was the second part of it.
Right,
Right.
and that was the intent, and I think that was the intent of the residents that submitted the petition, is their fear is having people cross Concord, which is 1,500 cars a day to get to that park. And again, I don't know, I understand we have those crossings further down Concord where you push the button and it flashes yellow to let everybody know that somebody's crossing the street. I don't know, and those are nice, but the problem is that's just like a warning. State law, if somebody's in a crosswalk and it's flashing, you're supposed to stop. It would be nice if they had something that you push the button and it flashed for cars to stop. And if they had a sign that said, pedestrian crossing ahead, be prepared to stop, and have a device that you push the button, it flashes, indicates to stop, and then people can cross. Kind of like a crosswalk. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do know the concern of the residents in that neighborhood are pedestrians safely crossing the street to get to the park and then get back home. It's not so much that they're concerned about sitting on side streets and having to turn out. It's more of a pedestrian safety concern.
That's what I thought. You had made a comment about you having to wait for cars. That's the only reason I said
Well, no, the reason I said that is I had to wait for cars is just to indicate that there is a fair amount of traffic on Concord. And like I said, I don't hardly use Route 30 anymore at all. Concord is my main go-to because Route 30 is so congested, and I really don't want to go through Orchard and 30 intersection. I just don't want to do it. Yeah, that was my point. Not that I had to sit there and wait, but I sat there and I watched 4 cars drive by before I could get out. And I have just seen a lot of traffic on Concord. So that was my point, not that I had to wait, because I don't mind. If I have to sit there and wait, that's fine. And I don't think, we're looking for 2 stop signs, one at Monarcho's and one at Thunder Gulch, because the main cross is going to be at Thunder Gulch. If you have a 4-way stop at Thunder Gulch and people are coming from Monarcho's in that area, they're going to know that's a 4-way stop, and they should walk all the way to Monarcho's, because you have to walk past the intersection anyway to cross at the 4-way stop. So it's not, have a stop sign at every cross street. And I appreciate that you're going to put the signage up at the crosswalks, but I, like the rest of the residents out there, just want to make sure that we provide safe passage to pedestrians across Concord, because, and again, it's 30 miles an hour, and you're right, they do not travel at 30. They come off at Dixon, and it's a race to Gordon, because everybody's in a hurry nowadays to get home or to go someplace, so.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, it's phase 1 of a 2-phase project.
I agree.
I didn't, I have
go
one
ahead.
other item yet.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize we were going to get into that much of a conversation, so I appreciate the information and the conversation. So I have another safety issue on the other side of town, by the pickleball courts on Briarcliff, Oswego Land Park District. So I've talked to some residents, and they, even with the new parking lot, there are some safety concerns with the folks that are still parking on the street and parking on the side street. So if somebody's walking and they're trying to cross the street for Riverbend or Foxmead, I think is the other one, I was told the cars are parking almost right up to the crosswalk. Now, I did take another look today. There's a fire hydrant in one of those areas, so that can't possibly be true on that particular area. But I was curious if there is something we can do in terms of striping the curb or putting up a sign, no parking between here and the corner, just so that there is enough line of sight for people to be able to cross safely if they're, walking, jogging, whatever, if they've got a stroller, dogs.
Is the parking lot that they put in not big enough to handle all the vehicles?
It is not. I believe there were 20 spaces put in there, and there's roughly 30 cars per day.
It's fine, it takes
Yeah,
20 cars off the
they
street.
took a lot of them off the street, because it was dangerous trying to drive past there, so there's definitely a difference. But the folks that are still showing up, they may not always park on Briarcliff. They're all, of course, trying to park as close as they can and give themselves the shortest walk to get to the court. So they are parking on the 2 side streets as close as they can to Briarcliff.
So they're parking as close as they can, so they have the shortest walk, so they can get out to get some exercise.
Right, so they can go
Okay.
exercise, absolutely.
Okay.
So I think first step would be to send staff out to just ensure that there is an issue before
Right.
we spend money to do something, but perfect.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Cool. All right, anything else? I appreciate all of you. All right, no executive session tonight. Future meeting, our next meeting is 2 weeks from today in this room. We have intergov at 6, and then board meeting at 7. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Go ahead.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Prosaska.
Yes.
Trustee Guyer.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Bauman.
Yes.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.